Okay, good. Right, evening all. Welcome to the Planning Committee from Town Council. My name's Steve Tanner. I'll be chairing this evening's meeting. Very loud in here. Usual, want to make our meetings available to as many people as possible. We use a hybrid setup here in person at the Town Hall and online via Zoom. For those in the room, the emergency exit is to the rear corner of the room. Assembly points in the car park. Toilets can be accessed at the end of the corridor, and there is an accessible toilet to the right of the lift. Any panelists on Zoom, please use the electronic raised hand by clicking on the participants button at the bottom of your screen. Those in the room, please raise your hand, usual. Any attendees on Zoom, please post questions to the Q&A board. Attendees' names will become visible on the questions board for the record as your question is answered. Tonight, Jane will clerk. Becca is going to do the questions board and participant section. She's just parking at the moment. The meeting will be recorded for minuting purposes, and we will live stream to our YouTube channel. Item number 2 on the agenda, apologies of absence received.
We've had apologies from Polly and Fiona.
Great. We have to vote on that.
You have to vote on that, yeah.
Great.
That was proposed by Steve, seconded by Lisa, and that's unanimous.
Good. Item number 3, any declarations of members' interest? No? Excellent. No. I don't know if you're taking notes.
I was just, because Becca's not here, I'm just writing down who.
Okay. So no members' interest. Item 4, agree the minutes of the meeting held on the 20th of Feb 2025. Any questions? Not. Someone propose them, please. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Philip.
I wasn't here, but assuming that Richard.
So that's majority then,
yeah. Item number 5, to consider major plan applications received, and over to Jane.
Thank you very much. So the first application for us to discuss is item number 652, and it's for 58 Beechwood Avenue, Frome, and it's for a proposed 2-bedroomed detached dwelling. So on the screen you can see the site location plan. I don't know how well the red line shows up. Not at all. So it is this property here. So here you can see the existing block and layout plan of the site. This is the garage to number 58. And then on the proposed plan, this is the existing dwelling. This is the proposed dwelling. And you can see that as part of the existing dwelling, there'll be a new pull-in hard standing here for parking of 2 cars and provision for two cars here. At the rear, there is cycle storage, 1 set for each property. And on the new dwelling, bin store has been shown at the front here. So because it's a proposed dwelling, there are no existing elevations. So I've taken a street view here. So this is the existing bungalow. This is the garage that I pointed out. So this element will be removed, and this property is proposed. You can see the rear elevation and the front elevation of the existing bungalow here. There is a small window on the side elevation, which will be a bathroom window, so that will be obscured, and no windows on the other side elevation. We move on to the proposed floor plans. So I should just point out, it's described in the application as a 2-bedroomed dwelling. So there's 2 double bedrooms, and then this one is described as a home office. Although I think myself and the Civic Society have pointed out that actually that is suitable for a single bedroom. So it could become a 3-bedroom property. Also, just should show you the street view from the side. So this is the side of the existing bungalow. And you can see that all the properties behind, as you turn up the side, side road, are bungalows as well. And the proposed dwelling will be here and will be 2-storey. So the notes that I sent, as I say, I mentioned whether or not technically it would be a 3-bedroom property. And if I go back to this slide, you can see on the street view that, actually, sorry, I'm just going to go back one more. The proposed dwelling sits quite forward of the neighbouring property here, and being 2-storey, so potentially overshadowing and overbearing this element here and potentially the properties behind. The other thing to note is that with the cycle store being at the rear, you would have to bring any bikes through the house because there isn't any, there'd be no, this little gate here is actually the gate for this property. And I can't see any electric charging points. However, you might feel that none of that is of concern to you, so over to you to discuss, unless I believe we've got the applicants.
Great, thank you, Jane. Jens, I don't know if you want to say anything, or do you just want us to put some questions to you? I'll leave it up to you, really. Sorry, you have to use microphones because people are online.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
I think on the middle is going to be a passageway where the bins and that's going to come out.
Okay.
Because it says there, I think you mentioned that there won't be no space.
So actually, down here, can you see my cursor? Is that what you mean? So the property boundary of this building here is shown there. So in order for that to happen, you'd have to go into the next door. I don't know if I can make that any bigger. Hold on.
I've got it on my phone here. On a drawing, the boundary is there. So that gap is this house, not this one. So you wouldn't be able to go through there. This house. The boundary is there. But if the boundary was the other side, they can get in that way and you can go that way.
Yeah, that's fine.
I mean, that's not necessarily a problem in itself, but you might find, I suppose the concern is that if you've got to take bikes through the house all the time, actually the temptation might be either to not have a bike.
That can be sorted, to be honest. So something you can do up front, it's not.
Have you spoken to the neighbours about this?
Yes, I think he has spoken to all the neighbours and the neighbours are fine with it.
Okay, that's
As
interesting.
you can see, there's no comments on the planning.
Yeah, last time I looked there wasn't.
Yeah, and if you look at the other side of the house, the other one is a double story as well. So he's going really on the line with the other house.
Yeah.
So it becomes like double story that one and is on the line with the other houses.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's an empty space that can be used as a dwelling. I think my concern is this room that's tagged as the Home Office, because my understanding is if it were a 3-bedroom application, there would need to be additional car parking provided. And I'm not aware of any way that we could enforce a control that says, actually, that's got to be a home office and you're never going to put a bed settee in there and make it into another bedroom.
No, that's correct, but there is also on-street parking in the area that could be utilised.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm all in favour of making use of the space as an extra dwelling, you know, how I feel about the need for homes in town.
Yeah.
The application be for a three-bedroom house. I mean, I use a bedroom as an office, but it's a bedroom. It's not an office I use as a bedroom.
Yeah, I mean, I think so the parking standards say 2.5 parking spaces for a three-bedroom dwelling. And what we don't know is how many bedrooms there are in a property next door. So you could potentially have two three-bedroom dwellings, which in total should have 5 parking spaces, but there would be 4. But as I say, there is on-street parking available.
Okay. Philip, sorry, I know you.
Having seen those pictures now, I'm not so concerned about the height, because obviously it matches the dwelling to the left. Just looking at that photograph there and looking at the drawing, it seems to me that with some careful planning, that it looks as if there's depth for 2 cars, one behind each other, in front of where you've got the silver and the blue car now. I'm just wondering how deep that is and whether that's allowable to have.
I think because this is going to sit a little bit more forward, that's potentially not going to work.
Okay, yeah. So there wouldn't be enough space.
Because you can see as
That's about
Andy said, the garage sits back.
6 meters.
Yeah, and then the dwelling will sit there.
Okay. But there is on-street parking, isn't there? Yeah.
Yeah, there is in Beechwood Avenue, yeah. The parking regulations are quite old, aren't they?
They've been in place for a long time, but you know, I think we have said before, rather than try and enforce the parking regulations, we try and encourage people not to have as many cars.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's sort of where I was heading with that one. Yeah. Okay. So any other comments from anyone before we? I'm sort of subject to, yeah. I mean, I think my main concern is the overbearing, and I think subject to no objections from the neighbours, and subject to the site visits from the planner. Then I've got an issue with. I haven't got an issue with the parking, I must admit. So if that works for everybody. So. Are we going with no objection, or are we going to support it? I think no objection. I subject to no objections from the neighbouring properties, and
Yeah, I think that's probably better,
Yeah.
because you know it is potentially something that would impact on the neighbours.
Yeah.
And just because the neighbours haven't commented yet doesn't mean that they won't. So subject to no objections from the neighbouring properties, then
Planning officer pick up the bedroom.
I'm sure they will, yes. Yeah.
so okay with that. So I'll propose that, or Philip can propose it. Got his hand up first.
So it's proposed by Philip, seconded by Philip. And that's unanimous. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, gents. You don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting, please. Yeah. Best of luck. All right.
Okay, so actually, it's quite a short list of applications this time round, and there weren't any others that I specifically highlighted for discussion, as you'll see from the notes, but are there any that anybody particularly wanted to talk about?
Yeah, just number 654, Thomas Bunn Close.
Yes, okay, talk amongst yourselves while I get
Yeah.
the
3-metre fence. It's big. It's big, isn't it? I mean, what's that? That's over 10 foot tall, isn't it?
Yeah, just about.
Two of me.
So it's not that tall.
It's me on his shoulder.
6 of you.
Just 2 stacked at 152.
I can see why they're doing it. I'd have thought there was a better way of
Yeah,
clearing out road noise than a 10-foot high, you know, a 3-metre fence. I must have.
I can sort of see why they think it might help, but I'm not convinced it will.
No, I mean,
And actually, I was up there on site a few days ago, and there's a real risk that if they do it, so would their next door neighbours, and you end up with a great big barricade on the way into town.
yeah, that was sort of, yeah.
And has been demonstrated on numerous occasions. Even acoustic fencing reduces noise levels to an absolute, you know, it makes minimal effect on the noise. And just to raise a fence by another metre or so really doesn't serve the purpose. And I agree with Andy. I think then it would allow others to put other applications in.
Anyone else? Any thoughts on it? I mean,
Can you get the pictures out of James?
Jane just came. So,
So this is the plan that was submitted with the application.
this is Bath Street, isn't it?
This is Bath Street, so I thought I'll show you that first, and I will also go to Street View as well. Just bear with me. Amongst yourselves.
I know within that development, the green spaces are managed by a management company, but I'm not sure whether that extends to the green spaces outside of that fence. And if it does, then why not just plant some trees there?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd have thought it'd been better to plant that bit of ground between the fence and the road with bushes and shrubs and to absorb noise, yeah, than just raising a fence, yeah.
Am I correct in thinking that this would be directly opposite the proposed building?
The old,
Yes, Old Ford.
no, it's
It's just before that. Oh, I see it now. I
before
got it
Gypsy
now.
Lane as you go out.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It was the old Mendip Hotel, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
It's where the motor.
yeah. Mendip Lodge.
So that's Gypsy Lane there, and then it has just been round. And I think when you look at it from Street View that was done in April 2024, there is no shrubbery, vegetation, whatever you want to call it there. So it will, I think, as I said, it will look very odd.
So there's two different types. There's two different types of fencing there, presumably belonging to two different houses.
Yeah.
Is only one of them proposing to have the
Yes.
doubling in size?
Yes.
So that's going to be incongruous anyway, isn't it?
It's the one on the right. that
Yeah, yeah, I get that.
think is the more
So, no, I think that should be planted up.
It looks like there are some small trees or shrubs planted just in front, which obviously aren't in leaf in this picture. But there is a comment about it being lost a little bit if it was built up with some vegetation.
Also, considering the reason that they've given, which is one of the reasons they've given, which is the traffic noise, the house is actually quite a distance from the road. You've got that green space, then the fence, then the garden, then the house. So I can't see that adding any height to that fence is really going to mitigate anything, really. It's just too far away.
I mean, I think you do need something, some vegetation would have more of an impact, but just to remind you what the Civic Society said, there's no justification or precedent for permitting a 10-foot fence facing a road. It will look like a prison and set a precedent for roadside dwellings to close in their properties across the town. This site was an open frontage to the old Medip Hotel. One of our concerns when redeveloped was that it would lose the openness of the site and the setting for the magnificent veteran trees, which was a great gateway to the town. The proposed fence would limit views to and from neighbouring properties, as the photo montages suggests. We sympathise with the owners, but a garden backing onto a busy road is always going to be subject to traffic noise. From a practical point of view, it is unlikely that the higher wooden fence would be much more effective as a sound barrier. The applicants mentioned that they are keen gardeners, so they could consider planting a dense, fast-growing hedge, which is likely to be more effective.
Yeah, sort of, yeah, what they said.
So we could reiterate the Civic Society comments?
Yeah.
Support what
Yeah,
they said?
might as well. Why reinvent
Just,
the
yeah,
wheel?
I mean, we think vegetation will be more effective than a increased height of fencing.
Yeah. So I'll propose that we object to that on that basis.
Great, thanks, Andy. Seconded.
Seconded by Philip, and that's unanimous, thank you. Are there any more? Anybody? wishes to
Just a
raise?
comment from me. Quite a number of trees this time. Quite a number of trees all the time, actually. But I am a bit concerned that, and I don't think there's an answer to this, but I think the Civic Society mentioned it as well. So some of the applications were very limited in the information, weren't they, that they gave us? And without a dedicated tree officer at Mendip, at Somerset at the moment, it's a little bit worrying that what's going to happen. And I don't know what the answer is. I just sort of wanted to make a comment.
Yeah, I agree. I think we've been having the discussion for about 5 years that information submitted with tree applications, in our view, is not sufficient. We've written several times to say that. We spoke directly with Bo, the tree officer at the time, and unfortunately haven't been able to make any changes to that. And I don't know who is taking over from Bo Walsh, who is the tree officer. So what expertise they have now at looking at trees, I'm not aware, and I would never put my hand up and say I'm a tree expert either.
Now, I just wonder, does Helen have any bandwidth to research some of these on our behalf?
Potentially, I can ask Rob, who is her line manager. I think what would be useful, if there are any that we have got particular concerns about when the agenda is sent out, if you want to flag them with me, I can.
I think, yeah, to me, it's the large sort of ancient stroke heritage trees. Like, there's an oak and a beech, isn't there?
Yeah.
I mean, I was talking to a tree surgeon today who's doing some work, and he was mentioning a couple of oak trees elsewhere in town that he said they've almost been ruined because they've just been pruned, whatever you call it, pollarded, pruned incorrectly. And he said they might come back, they might not. And it just concerns me that with no tree officer, if people just take a chainsaw to these things thinking they're pruning them and, sort of make a right hash of a 150-year-old tree.
I mean, certainly Helen's knowledge of trees and tree management is, is very good. So, I mean, I'm not sure that she would be able to look at every single one for us. But if there's some that we're very concerned about, then do flag them with me, and I can talk directly with Helen about it.
Because actually, if we can object on the basis that our tree specialist has
We know what we're talking
highlighted some
about.
problems.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, who's to argue,
Yeah,
basically?
yeah.
All right, well, can you have a word with Rob stroke Helen?
Yep.
And we'll see if we can, see what we can do about that.
I will do that.
I think the other ones we're happy to let go through without objection,
Daniel?
Steve.
Questions on anything else? No?
Yeah.
Right, should we vote on the comments that Joe made? Thanks, Andy.
That's Andy, seconded by Mark, and that's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Short meeting, desperately trying to find out the date of the next meeting, which is the 3rd of April 2025. Thanks, good night. Thanks, Bex.